Repel.
And welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of GPCR drug discovery. Now, if you're wondering what GPCR stands for, it's short for G-protein coupled receptors. These are incredibly important proteins in our body that play a key role in transmitting signals from outside the cell to the inside. Think of them as the mailmen of cellular communication. GPCRs are involved in many physiological processes, from vision and taste to mood regulation and immune responses. Because of their central role in these processes, they are prime targets for drug discovery. In fact, around 30 to 50% of all modern medicinal drugs target GPCRs. Now, let's talk about how drugs interact with these receptors. There are two main types of compounds that can bind to GPCRs, agonists and antagonists. Agonists are like a key that fits perfectly into a lock, activating the receptor and triggering a response in the cell. For instance, when you take a medication for asthma, it often works by activating a specific GPCR to open up your airways. On the other hand, antagonists block the receptor, preventing it from being activated. This is useful in conditions where you want to inhibit a particular pathway, like in certain types of cancer. But there's more. Within the realm of GPCRs, we also have something called biased signaling. This is a super interesting concept. You see, not all signals are created equal. Some drugs can preferentially activate one pathway over another. This means that a single receptor can produce different effects depending on which pathway is activated. Imagine having a remote control that can switch between different channels on your TV. Each channel shows a different show, right? Biased signaling allows for more nuanced control over how drugs work, potentially leading to fewer side effects. Now, let's shift gears and talk about allosteric modulators. These are a new class of drugs that bind to a different site on the GPCR, called the allosteric site. This is like having a second remote that can adjust the volume or brightness without changing the channel. Allosteric modulators can enhance or inhibit the effects of the primary ligand without directly blocking it. This can lead to greater selectivity and fewer side effects, making them a hot topic in drug development. Now, you might be wondering, how do researchers discover these new drugs? Well, it starts with understanding the structure of GPCRs. Advanced techniques like X-ray crystallography and cryo-electron microscopy allow scientists to visualize these receptors in detail. This structural information is crucial for designing new drugs that can effectively target these receptors. Artificial intelligence is also playing a huge role in this field. With the ability to analyze vast amounts of data, AI can help identify potential drug candidates and predict how they will interact with GPCRs. This accelerates the drug discovery process, bringing new therapies to patients faster than ever before. As we continue to explore the complexities of these receptors, there's a growing focus on precision medicine. Now, let's talk about how certain drugs can target specific pathways within these receptors. You're in the right place. So, let's break it down. In Figure 10, we're looking at the structural basis of G-protein biased agonism, particularly focusing on the mu-opioid receptor, or. Now, don't worry if some of these terms sound complex, I'll guide you through them step by step. First off, GPCRs are a large family of receptors that play crucial roles in transmitting signals from outside the cell to the inside. They're involved in many physiological processes, making them important targets for drug development. Now, what do we mean by biased agonism? Well, when a ligand, which is a molecule that binds to a receptor, activates a GPCR, it can trigger different signaling pathways. Some ligands preferentially activate the G-protein pathway, while others may activate the beta-arrestin pathway. This selectivity is what we call biased signaling. So, let's zoom in on Figure 10. Here, we see the interactions between two ligands, a balanced agonist called fentanyl and a G-protein biased ligand known as C5-guano. Notice how these ligands interact with the OR? The figure highlights specific residues in the receptor's binding pocket. The guanidine group of the C5-guano ligand interacts with a key amino acid, aspartate 2.50, located in the sodium ion binding pocket. This interaction is crucial because it helps reduce or even eliminate the recruitment of beta-arrestin 1 and beta-arrestin 2, which are proteins that mediate the beta-arrestin pathway. Why is this important? Well, by favoring the G-protein pathway, C5-guano aims to achieve effective pain relief without triggering the side effects commonly associated with beta-arrestin activation, such as respiratory depression and constipation. This is a game changer in pain management, as it allows for targeted therapeutic effects while minimizing adverse reactions. Now, let's compare this to fentanyl, which is a balanced agonist. Fentanyl activates both pathways, which can lead to those unwanted side effects. In contrast, C5-guano's design specifically targets the G protein pathway, showcasing the potential of biased agonists to provide safer and more effective treatments. So, in summary, Figure 10 illustrates how understanding the structural interactions at the molecular level can lead to the development of drugs that are not only effective but also safer for patients. The ongoing research in bias signaling is paving the way for innovative therapies that can better manage pain and other conditions without the drawbacks of traditional treatments. Let's take a closer look at Table 1, which lists some allosteric drugs for GPCRs. But first, what do we mean by allosteric? Well, allosteric modulators are compounds that bind to a site on the receptor that is different from the active site, which is where the usual ligands, or signaling molecules, bind. This means they can change how the receptor works without blocking it completely, leading to more nuanced effects. First up, we have avacopan, which targets the C5A receptor, also known as C5AR1. It's a negative allosteric modulator, or NAM, and it's already approved for use. Avacopan is used to treat anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic autoantibodies-associated vasculitis, a condition where the immune system mistakenly attacks blood vessels. By modulating the receptor's activity, avacopan helps manage this serious condition. Next, we have cinacalcet, a positive allosteric modulator, or PAM, that targets the calcium-sensing receptor, CASR. It's also approved and is used for treating hyperparathyroidism and calciphylaxis. Cinacalcet essentially enhances the receptor's response to calcium, helping to regulate calcium levels in the body more effectively. Moving on, we have ticagrelor, another NAM, which targets the P2Y12 receptor. This drug is crucial in preventing thrombosis, which is the formation of blood clots. It's often used in patients who have had heart attacks or strokes, as it helps keep their blood flowing smoothly. Then there's ivermectin, a well-known PAM that targets the GABA receptor. It's approved for treating parasitic roundworm infections and has gained a lot of attention in recent years for its potential use against other diseases, although that's a topic for another video. Next, we have ATX201, which is a PAM for the NPY4 receptor. It's currently approved for various conditions, including viral and bacterial infections, atopic dermatitis, and even cancer. This shows the versatility of allosteric modulators in treating a wide range of health issues. Maraviroc is another interesting drug on our list. It's an NAM that targets the CCR5 receptor and is currently in phase 3 trials for HIV infection. By blocking this receptor, Maraviroc prevents the virus from entering cells, which is a critical step in managing HIV. Next, we have Vercernin, also a NAM for the CCR9 receptor, which is in phase 3 trials for inflammatory bowel disease. This drug works by modulating the immune response in the gut, offering hope for those with chronic digestive issues. Finally, we have some promising candidates like BMS 986-165, which targets mGluR4 and is in phase 3 for conditions like plaque psoriasis and Crohn's disease. Then there's mavaglurant, a NAM for mGluR5, which is in phase 3 for Fragile X syndrome. And let's not forget about ADX48-621, targeting mGluR5 as well, which is in phase 3 for Parkinson's disease levodopa-induced dyskinesia. Wow, that's quite a lineup. Each of these drugs represents a unique approach to targeting GPCRs, showcasing the potential of allosteric modulation in drug development. By selectively enhancing or inhibiting receptor functions, these drugs can lead to more effective treatments with fewer side effects. Next, let's focus specifically on the content of Figure 11 from a recent study. So, grab your notebooks, and let's break this down together. Alright, let's set the stage. GPCRs are a large family of receptors that play crucial roles in various physiological processes. They're involved in everything from sensory perception to immune responses. In Figure 11, we're looking at the structural dynamics of GPCRs and how they interact with different ligands, essentially, the molecules that bind to these receptors and trigger a response. Now, first things first, what do we mean by structural dynamics? This term refers to the changes in the shape and conformation of GPCRs when they bind to a ligand. Think of it like a key fitting into a lock. When the right key, or ligand, is inserted, it causes the lock, the GPCR, to change shape, allowing it to open and initiate a response inside the cell. In the figure, you'll notice various ligands depicted. These can be classified into two main categories, orthosteric and allosteric ligands. Orthosteric ligands bind to the primary active site of the GPCR, while allosteric ligands bind to a different site, causing changes that can enhance or inhibit the receptor's activity. One of the most exciting concepts illustrated in Figure 11 is biased signaling. This is where things get really interesting. Biased signaling occurs when a ligand preferentially activates one signaling pathway over another. For example, a ligand might activate the pathway that leads to beneficial effects while avoiding pathways that cause side effects. This selectivity is crucial for developing safer and more effective drugs. Next, let's talk about G-protein-coupled receptor kinases, or GRKs. These are enzymes that play a key role in regulating GPCR activity. When a ligand binds to a GPCR, GRKs can phosphorylate the receptor, which can lead to desensitization. Essentially, the receptor becomes less responsive to further stimulation. This is like turning down the volume on a speaker after it's been too loud for too long. Finally, the implications of these dynamics for drug discovery are enormous. Understanding how different ligands interact with GPCRs can help researchers design more selective drugs that target specific pathways. This means we could develop medications that treat diseases with fewer side effects, which is a huge win for patients. Now, let's break down the content from Table 2, which highlights some FDA-approved agents that target GPCRs with polypharmacological characteristics from 2010 to 2023. First up, we have sparsentan, which was approved in 2023. This drug acts as an antagonist for two receptors, AT1R and ETR. It's primarily used for treating immunoglobulin A nephropathy, a kidney condition that can lead to serious health issues. By blocking these receptors, sparsentan helps manage the disease effectively. Next on our list is tirzepatide, which received approval in 2022. This medication is an agonist for both GIPR and GLP-1R. Now, what does that mean? Well, agonists are substances that activate receptors to produce a biological response. Tirzepatide is used to manage type 2 diabetes, helping to regulate blood sugar levels and improve metabolic function. Moving on to bencycloquidium bromide, which was approved in 2020. This drug functions as an antagonist for the M1 and M3 receptors, and it's used to treat allergic rhinitis. By blocking these receptors, it helps alleviate allergy symptoms, making it easier for people to breathe and feel comfortable during allergy season. Another significant player is ozanimod, also approved in 2020. This one acts as an agonist for S1Prs, which are involved in immune responses. Ozanimod is used in the treatment of Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis, helping to modulate the immune system and reduce inflammation. Then we have fenfluramine, approved in 2020 as well. This drug acts on 5-HT1RS and 5-HT2RS, which are serotonin receptors. It's primarily used for treating Lennox-Gastaut syndrome and Dravet syndrome, both of which are severe forms of epilepsy. By activating these receptors, fenfluramine helps reduce the frequency of seizures. Now, let's talk about siponimod, which was approved in 2019. This drug is an agonist of S1PR1 and S1PR3-5, and it's used for secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. By targeting these receptors, siponimod helps to slow down the progression of the disease and improve the quality of life for patients. Next, we have lumateperone, which was also approved in 2019. This drug acts as an antagonist for 5-HT2R and D2R, and it's used to treat depression and schizophrenia. By modulating these receptors, lumateperone helps balance mood and reduce psychotic symptoms. Approved in 2018, we have rivafenacin, an antagonist of muscarinic receptors. This medication is used for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, helping to relax the muscles in the airways and improve breathing. Then there's dinyl-buphine sebacate, which was approved in 2017. This drug acts as an agonist of the kappa opioid receptor and an antagonist of the mu opioid receptor. It's primarily used for pain management, offering a unique approach to pain relief with potentially fewer side effects than traditional opioids. Moving on to aripiprazole Loroxil, approved in 2015. This medication is a complex one, acting as an agonist for D2R and several serotonin receptors while also antagonizing others. It's used to treat schizophrenia and help stabilize mood and reduce psychotic episodes. Another notable drug is brexpiprazole, also approved in 2015. Similar to aripiprazole, it acts as an agonist for 5-HT1R and D2R, helping to manage agitation and severe depressive disorders. Lastly, we have cariprazine, which was approved in 2015 as well. This drug acts on multiple serotonin and dopamine receptors, making it effective for treating severe depressive disorders and schizophrenia. Now, let's take a closer look at some exciting drugs listed in Table 3 of our reference material. This table highlights antibody drugs specifically designed for GPCRs. These antibody drugs are like precision tools, targeting specific receptors to treat a range of diseases. Let's break it down. First up, we have irenyumab, which targets the CGRP receptor. It's already approved for treating migraines and temporomandibular joint dysfunction syndrome. CGRP, or calcitonin gene-related peptide, is a molecule that can trigger headaches, so blocking its receptor helps alleviate pain. Next, we have mogamulizumab, which targets the CCR4 receptor. This drug is approved for certain types of cancers, including adult T-cell leukemia and cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. By blocking CCR4, it helps the immune system fight these cancers more effectively. Moving on, we have larenlimab, which is currently in Phase 3 trials. It targets the CCR5 receptor and shows promise for treating COVID-19 pneumonia and metastatic colorectal cancer. CCR5 is a co-receptor that some viruses, including HIV, use to enter cells, so blocking it can have significant therapeutic effects. Then there's talquetamab, which targets GPRC5D and is also in Phase 3 trials for multiple myeloma. GPRC5D is a receptor that's often overexpressed in certain cancers, making it a great target for antibody therapy. Now, let's talk about REMD477, which is in Phase 2 trials and targets the GCGR receptor. It's being investigated for its potential in treating type 1 and type 2 diabetes, as well as glucose intolerance. By blocking this receptor, it helps regulate blood sugar levels. We also have plozolizumab, another Phase 2 candidate targeting CCR2. It's being explored for diabetic nephropathy and melanoma. CCR2 is involved in inflammatory responses, so targeting it could help manage these conditions. Next on our list is LY3041658, which targets both CXCR1 and CXCR2 and is currently in Phase 2 trials for hidradenitis suppurativa, a chronic skin condition. These receptors are involved in inflammatory processes, so blocking them can help reduce symptoms. Avduralimab is another Phase 2 drug targeting C5AR1, and it's being investigated for advanced solid tumors and COVID-19 pneumonia. The C5A receptor plays a role in the immune response, and targeting it can help modulate inflammation. Next, we have volagidemab, which also targets GCGR and is in Phase 2 trials for diabetes management. Similar to REMD477, it aims to help regulate glucose levels. AMG 301 is another interesting drug targeting PAC1R, currently in Phase 2 trials for migraines. By focusing on this receptor, it aims to provide relief from migraine symptoms. Gedatolisib, targeting ETR, is also in Phase 2 for pulmonary arterial hypertension. This receptor is involved in regulating blood vessel constriction, so blocking it can help manage this condition. Then we have tidutamab, which targets SSTR2 and is in Phase 2 trials for various cancers, including Merkel cell carcinoma and small cell lung cancer. SSTR2 is a receptor that can influence tumor growth, making it a valuable target. Nimacimab is another Phase 2 candidate targeting CB1, and it's being explored for conditions like diabetic gastroparesis and obesity. CB1 is involved in appetite regulation and metabolism. Ulokumab, targeting CXCR4, is in Phase 2 trials for pancreatic cancer and other hematologic malignancies. CXCR4 is known for its role in cancer cell migration, so blocking it can help prevent cancer spread. LM305 targets GPRC5D and is in early Phase 1/2 trials for multiple myeloma and solid tumors. This drug is part of the growing interest in targeting orphan GPCRs. TAK500 is in Phase 1 trials for various cancers, targeting CCR2. As we mentioned earlier, CCR2 is involved in inflammation, making it a relevant target for cancer therapies. JBH492, targeting CCR7, is in Phase 1 trials for B-cell chronic lymphocytic leukemia and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. CCR7 is involved in lymphocyte trafficking, so targeting it can help manage blood cancer.
pharma pal.